Welcome back to Ophelia. A quick refresher if you drifted off last night. After 10 years living abroad with her father, Ophelia returned to her childhood home at Elsinore Castle in the island kingdom of Dacia, a place that had only grown darker in her absence. Magic was forbidden, and fear followed anyone rumored to possess it. On her journey to the castle, Ophelia witnessed a magic user known as the Changed, attempting to escape the authorities. In the chaos, she was nearly thrown from her horse, but was rescued by her childhood friend, Hamlet. They talked, they laughed, and Ophelia was left looking forward to the ball at Elsinore Castle that evening. Join us as we follow Ophelia on the eve of her 21st birthday, as her whole world is turned upside down. Ophelia stood alone in the doorway of her chambers in Elsinore Castle and tried to breathe past the strange, fluttering tightness in her chest. The room was far lovelier than she had expected. Late afternoon light poured through tall panes of stained glass, depicting delicate roses complete with sharp thorns. The glass cast fractured pools of amber, green, and rose across the stone floor. A fire burned low and steady in the hearth, its warmth reaching even her chilled fingers. An overstuffed, deep blue armchair held the promise of hours spent with a good book. The bed was impossibly large, layered with quilts and pillows so thick they looked as if they might swallow her whole. It was a perfect place to reset, to hide, to while the hours away from the prying eyes at court. At the far wall, a window looked out over the edge of the city to the wild expanse of Dacia. Ophelia was drawn to it and looked over the raw landscape to the dead woods on the horizon. Though she couldn't feel the wind on her face, she felt it in her heart as it swept over the hills and rocks, as if it was calling her. It wasn't beautiful, but it was untamed, open and free, something she craved. She removed her mud-caked boots and set her small pack near the window. From it, she carefully lifted the clay pot that had travelled with her across seas and stone roads. The orange tree sprout inside trembled as she set it down, its leaves catching the light. "This will be your corner," she whispered. She was struck with a pang of longing for her small garden, the plants she had to leave behind, the flowers she wouldn't see bloom. Turning, she noticed a long box wrapped in green silk atop the bed. Inside lay a dress of deep green velvet, mossy and rich, the fabric drinking in the light. Subtle embroidery crept upward in winding vines and half-hidden leaves, as though the dress were alive. Beneath it rested a folded note, sealed with pale gold wax. "This dress would have matched your mother's eyes. I think it will be lovely on you. Welcome home. Gertrude." The words blurred. A gift from the Queen, Hamlet's mother. Ophelia sat heavily on the edge of the bed, the velvet pooling over her knees. Her mother's eyes. She had no memory of them beyond stories and one faded miniature portrait, but the thought lodged somewhere tender and aching. The Queen had known her mother. Polonius had never mentioned it. She was not left alone with the thought for long. Servants came and went, arranging her hair and fastening the dress, which fit her as if it had been made for her alone. When they were finished, Ophelia barely recognized herself. The green brought out her eyes. Her hair was braided and pinned, her curls gently escaping around her face. The dress was cut low across her chest and skimmed her waist to her hips. She didn't look like the girl her father always treated her to be, or the wallflower she had become at the previous balls. She looked otherworldly. The wildness she felt inside was visible now, something to be admired. It felt good to be seen. The ballroom was already alive when she entered on her father's arm. Music swirled, strings and low drums weaving together as candlelight turned the high ceilings into a shifting sky of gold. The air was warm and vibrant from bodies, wine, beeswax and flagstone underfoot. Ophelia kept her chin lifted, her steps measured, though her heart beat far faster than the music. She was announced with Polonius, and together they approached the thrones. King Hamlet and Queen Gertrude sat, hands intertwined. The king's presence filled the room, though his expression was distant. The queen smiled warmly, her eyes sharp with cunning and something like fondness. Behind his mother's throne stood Prince Hamlet. Ophelia did not look directly at him, yet she felt his attention like heat against her back. The king's brother, and second hand to the throne, Claudius, stood near the dais as well, hands folded, his gaze sweeping the room. He did not look at Ophelia at all. "You have grown into a remarkable young woman," Queen Gertrude said, her voice carrying easily. "We are glad to have you at court, Ophelia. I hope you will remember that Elsinore Castle will always be your home." Ophelia inclined her head, murmuring thanks, her pulse loud in her ears. She wanted to speak to the queen, to ask her the many questions spinning in her mind, but the king turned to Polonius, drawing him away. And just like that, Ophelia was dismissed. She drifted through the ballroom, letting the spectacle wash over her, the shimmer of silk, the laughter caught between notes of music, the rich scents of spiced wine and citrus. Courtiers nodded, some curious and some appraising. She returned each glance with a practiced composure, while something inside her tightened. She slipped through a side archway into a quieter hall, her breath easing as the music dulled behind stone. She had gone only a few steps when voices drifted towards her, low and intent. "A changed," a woman was saying. "Caught at last." That word, changed, landed like something sharp beneath Ophelia's ribs. The image of the young woman flying through the air that morning flashed in Ophelia's mind. They must learn to deal with these things faster, put them out of their misery. Ophelia pressed herself briefly into the shadow of a pillar, her breath shallow, her skin prickling. The ease with which they spoke about this woman as if she were less than human made her stomach turn. She needed distance. At the far end of the hall, a soft, glowing light spilled from an open doorway, beckoning her. As she passed through the doorway, her eyes took in the most astonishingly beautiful library she'd ever seen. Shelves climbed impossibly high, ladders standing ready. The air smelled of old paper, leather and dust warmed by centuries. Ophelia stepped inside as if into a sanctuary. Her fingers trailed along spines as she walked. She climbed a ladder, drawn to a dark blue volume high above. As she looked at it, she could have sworn energy around it pulsed. "What do you think you're doing?" She glanced down. A young man stood at the base of the ladder, dark hair falling into his eyes, his expression sharp and irritated. "I'm looking," Ophelia said, bristling, "which I believe is allowed." "This section is restricted," he snapped. "Restricted from whom?" she asked. "People who might actually read the books?" His mouth tightened. "From guests who wander in because they've tired of pretending to enjoy themselves." His tone held a spark, like his words were kindling for a fire he hoped to set. "I was just looking for an escape," she allowed. "Most debutantes escape to wine or mirrors." Ophelia raised an eyebrow. For someone surrounded by books, you're surprisingly narrow-minded. He smiled thinly. I've learned that depth is wasted on most people here. She snorted. And yet you stay. Someone has to keep the books from being auctioned off whenever a lord grows bored or broke. She began to climb down. You should try reading for pleasure. It might improve your temperament. And you should do what you are told. He shot back. It will improve your quality of life. She would have rolled her eyes had her foot not slipped on the next rung. The world lurched. She collided with him, both of them tumbling to the floor in a tangle of limbs. The sharp hitch of his breath, close enough that she felt it. Pulling back, Ophelia caught his gaze on her face and found herself wondering at his grey eyes. They seemed to almost move and swirl, like smoke. Leah? Hamlet's voice cut through the moment. Ophelia scrambled upright, cheeks burning. Hamlet stood in the doorway, concern etched across his face. She was trespassing, the young man muttered. I was reading, Ophelia corrected, which is aggressively discouraged, apparently. Hamlet sighed, rubbing his temple. Horatio, this is Ophelia. Ophelia, Horatio, my closest friend and the most insufferable guardian of rules you will ever meet. That's not a title, Horatio said flatly. It absolutely is, Hamlet replied. Horatio huffed. Ophelia smiled. Come, Hamlet said, offering his arm. You promised me a dance. Ophelia tilted her head slightly, smiling. I did no such thing. Well, you were planning on doing so, weren't you? What's the difference? He smirked. She took his arm, and they left the library and Horatio behind them. The music was bright when they entered together. Hamlet led her easily into the dance, his hand steady at her waist. You always were terrible at staying where you were told, he said lightly. And you always liked telling me what to do, she replied. He smiled. True. As they moved, Ophelia leaned closer. Tomorrow I'm 21, she said. I'll be of age. I won't stand for you bossing me around anymore like when we were children. He looked down at her and lowered his voice. Have I ever been anything but respectful? She paused at the look in his eyes. It was gentle, searching, like he was really trying to see her. She held his gaze, her heart unsteady. She wasn't sure what it meant, only that she didn't want him to stop looking at her like that. She finally cleared her throat and broke the silence. Fine, you've been a perfect gentleman. She then looked off at the other dancers. Except for the time when I was 9 and you convinced me to help you steal a slice of cake from the kitchen and then let me take the fall for it. My father... She was cut off by Hamlet pulling her into him tightly and laughing. Will I always be apologizing for the slice of cake, Leah? He looked down at her again, his eyes shining from laughing. I suppose if you let me, I'd be happy to keep making it up to you. Maybe tomorrow for your birthday. Ophelia offered a smile and nodded. When the song faded, his hand didn't leave her waist, his fingers continuing to brush against her hips. He kept her by his side, and they danced together the rest of the night. He seemed unbothered by the stir his attention to her was causing with the court. Ophelia saw the whispers and glances pointed her way. The whispers didn't matter when she was with him. When the last notes faded and the guests dispersed, Hamlet walked Ophelia back to her room. Standing with her back to the door, she looked up at Hamlet to find him smiling at her. As he leaned in, she felt his breath on her ear. Happy birthday, Leah, he whispered. He pressed a slow kiss on her cheek. Her breath caught, at the gentle scrape of his beard against her skin. As he pulled back, he gave a look that sparked something warm inside her, and then strode away into the darkness of the hall. She was left with the battering of her own heartbeat. Ophelia fell into bed fully dressed, the fire burning low, the orange tree bathed in moonlight. She dreamt of warmth, of rain, of roots breaking through stone. When she woke, the air was thick and humid. Green shapes trailing the walls and ceiling caught her eyes. Patches of grass burst through the stone, and blooming wisteria hung from the ceiling. Her room had transformed into a greenhouse reclaimed by the wild. Fully awake, she sat up and looked to the corner where her orange seedling had been lovingly placed. Its pot lay shattered around a fully grown orange tree. As she moved, the plants shifted with her. She felt it, a tingling in her hands and feet, like a warmth ready to burst forth from her. She felt the plants breathing and growing and brimming with life. She realized she had done this. These plants, this life, had come from her. For a moment she was filled with a wild joy at the beauty of it, but joy was quickly replaced with horror. This was earth magic. She was one of the changed.